19th and 20th century America has been shaped physically and socially more by one invention than by any other, the automobile. We are going to look at three cars whose impact is still being felt to this day. The Ford Model T, the car that changed everything. The Ford Model T, also known affectionately as the Tin Lizzie, was designed by Henry Ford to be a simple, reliable, and affordable car that the common man could own and maintain. The Model T was the car that put America and the world on wheels. It had a simple four-cylinder engine with a one-piece engine block and detachable cylinder heads that allowed it to be worked on easily. The Model T was designed to use interchangeable parts so that they could be changed quickly and cheaply by the owner. Production started in 1908 and lasted for 19 years. When it went on sale in 1908, it cost $850, or about $21,000 today. By 1924, the cost had dropped to $260, only $3,600 in today's dollars. How could the price drop so dramatically? The price drop was possible through the use of a moving assembly line, which Henry Ford ruthlessly used in search of efficiencies, going so far as to famously limit the color choice to just black. All of these cost benefits were passed on to the consumer. By 1921, Ford's market share was 60%. Because of the Model T's success, Ford was able to introduce the $5 workday to its factory employees. This was almost double the average factory wage at the time. The Model T led to mass production, which led to the $5 workday, which led to mass prosperity and an increased middle class, which led to the suburban expansion across the country, which led to new ways of consuming, such as drive-thrus and malls. The mobility that one's own automobile provided led to one of the first examples of modern social networking. One could also argue that the mobile privacy it provided also led to a sexual revolution. Ford expressed his dream of mobility for the common man by saying, "No man making a good salary will be unable to own one, and enjoy with his family the blessings of hours of pleasure in God's great open spaces." The Volkswagen Beetle and Microbus, the commodity car that made nonconformity okay. The Beetle was originally called the Kraft durch Freudewagen, or Strength Through Joy car. Despite its weird name, no one complained about it, probably because Adolf Hitler had named it. Just like Henry Ford, Hitler wanted a simple, practical car for the people to put the country on wheels. Hitler employed Ferdinand Porsche to design a simple car that could seat 5 with an air-cooled engine mounted in the rear. Production started in 1938 and lasted for 65 years. First as a product of the Third Reich, then after the war, as a product of the new Volkswagen company. When the Beetle went on sale in America in 1950, it ran directly against the prevailing winds of the American car industry's trends of bigger, wider, longer. Because the Beetle's design didn't really change, an owner didn't have to worry about keeping up with the Joneses and their car designs that changed every year. The Beetle and Microbus became symbols for Americans who wanted to be different. Their owners could afford much more expensive cars, but choose smart substance over flash. Volkswagen went against all of the glitz of Detroit with smart, self-deprecating advertisements. The Beetle's most fervent believers, intellectuals, hippies, freethinkers, and dissidents, are exactly the type of people Hitler would have hated. His car became their car. His militarism became their call for peace. The counterculture nature of the Beetle and the Microbus was cemented in the 60s and 70s. They became pop culture symbols: Herbie, hippies, Beetle stuffing, and punch buggies. They became iconic. The Beetle's success inspired Chevrolet to launch its own rear-mounted, air-cooled competitor, but Chevrolet's results were not as positive or successful. The Chevrolet Corvair, the 60s car that led to George W. Bush being elected president. The Corvair is not necessarily the main story, but more so what it started. General Motors' answer to the Beetle was air-cooled and rear-engined, but bigger, sized more for Americans. It was modestly successful with almost 2 million made over 9 years. Because of the rear-engine design, It had some handling issues with the suspension that surfaced unless the tires were kept at specific pressures, which wasn't a realistic expectation of owners. By 1964, the suspension design had been changed to make it safer, but the accidents had already happened and the damage had been done. It was in 1965 that a lawyer named Ralph Nader wrote a book about the auto industry's neglect for the safety of the motoring public. The book was Unsafe at Any Speed, and the first chapter was about the Corvair. His book exposed the American car company's tendency to cut corners and shave costs when it came to safety. The Corvair became the poster child for unsafe automobiles. Nader's book prompted hearings on auto safety. In 1966, Congress passed the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act, which forced automakers to publicly announce vehicle recalls. This led to a rash of health standards and safety regulations across all industries. Nader ushered in an era of non-government organizations with public policy agendas. With Nader's attack on the Corvair, he launched America's consumer movement, which is still being felt today, with the creation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in 2011. Corvair cases established lawsuits or liability law as a disciplinary tool to stop manufacturers from producing unsafe products. The notoriety that Nader received kept him in the public eye as a defender of the public good and opponent to the evils of corporations. Nader used this notoriety to run for president in 2000, along with George W. Bush and Al Gore. It's widely believed that Nader split the Democrat vote in California, handing a narrow electoral college victory and the presidency to George W. Bush. If the Corvair was safe to begin with, Nader might never have gained the notoriety that carried him through decades of being in the public eye and popular enough to consider running for president. If the Corvair was safe to begin with, we might have had President Al Gore in 2000, and we might not have needed so much change in 2008, or a dog whistle to make America great again in 2016. If only the Corvair was safe to begin with.